2 days later, the first domino fell. A boy went missing. Little Arne, the baker's son. They searched frantically, their calls echoing through the quiet woods. As dusk painted the sky in shades of bruised purple, they found him by the river. He was alive but completely silent, his eyes wide and vacant. He was clutching something tightly in his small fist. It was the ring. A collective gasp went through the crowd. A chill, colder than the evening air, settled over them. How could this be? Eirik hadn't left his cabin since he'd returned. He hadn't touched anyone, hadn't spoken to anyone. So how did the ring, the very thing he'd fought to contain, end up in this child's hand? The village priest, a man of faith and supposed courage, stepped forward. He reached out and, with trembling but bare fingers, plucked the ring from the boy's grasp. The moment his skin made contact with the cold metal, his confident smile evaporated. His pupils dilated into black pools of terror. He began to shake, and in a hoarse whisper he uttered the words that would haunt the village forever. "I can hear breathing, under the mountain." He dropped the ring as if it were burning coal, but the damage was already done. It was too late. That's when the horrifying truth began to dawn on them. The troll wasn't a physical beast that stalked the woods. It didn't need to walk or run. It traveled like a story whispered in the dark. It spread like a rumor on the wind, like a sickness from one person to the next. The ring was its vessel. It moved from one hand to another, one pocket to another, passed along by one curious glance, one moment of greed, one touch of innocent wonder. The curse began to weave its way through the fabric of the village, silent and insidious, like rot spreading through damp wood. A fisherman pulled up his nets to find it gleaming amongst the thrashing fish. A grieving widow found it sitting on her windowsill, mocking the morning sun. A child, building a snowman, found it buried in the snow, impossibly warm, like a freshly baked loaf of bread. And with every new person who touched it, something changed. It wasn't a sudden transformation, nothing so obvious. It was a slow, creeping alteration, like the gradual onset of a long winter. Their fingernails started to thicken and yellow. Their voices deepened, taking on a gravelly, guttural tone. Their tempers once even became short and sharp. They snarled at their neighbors, and brawls broke out over the smallest slights. And at night, a new terror began. They all started to dream the same dream. A stark, lonely mountain, a gaping cave-like mouth, and the feeling of something enormous, ancient, and alive, shifting in the suffocating darkness beneath it. Meanwhile, Eirik locked himself away, a prisoner in his own home. He barricaded the door and windows, trying to starve the curse out of him. He stopped eating, he stopped sleeping. But abstinence gave the entity no pause. It didn't weaken, it grew stronger, feeding on his fear and isolation. The whispers from the mountain grew louder in his mind. He started hearing phantom footsteps, deep under the earth, echoing the beat of his own terrified heart. He began to smell things no human could, the scent of blood through thick wooden walls, the coppery temps of fear from the villagers huddled in their homes. Worse, he began to crave things he had never craved before. He found himself fantasizing about the crunch of bone marrow, the taste of raw meat, the sweet, intoxicating scent of warm fear. He was losing himself piece by piece. On the 7th night of his self-imposed exile, he was jolted awake by a tremendous crash. His cabin door was shattered, splinters of wood littering the floor. He scrambled up, thinking someone had broken in. But the door was broken from the inside. He looked at his own hands, trembling uncontrollably. Then he saw it. His arm, from the elbow down to his wrist, was no longer covered in skin. It was rough, gray, and veined with dark lines, like the face of a stone cliff. It was cold and hard to the touch. The transformation had begun. Eirik fell to his knees, a choked sob escaping his lips, and for the first time in his stoic life he prayed. But he wasn't praying to God, he was praying to the mountain, because he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his core, that a part of him already belonged to it. The priest, now a pale half-mad shell of his former self, finally revealed the whole truth. He gathered the terrified villagers in the church, his voice a ragged whisper. "This isn't a curse meant to kill you," he said, his eyes darting around wildly. "It's a contract." The villagers shouted, demanding answers, their fear turning to anger. And the priest gave them the oldest, most terrifying answer of all. "Trolls don't steal," he croaked. "They collect." The ring wasn't a piece of lost treasure. It was a receipt, an invoice. Long ago, the troll beneath the northern mountain had been paid a tribute, a terrible price for peace. But for some reason, generations later, someone had stopped paying. And now, the mountain was angry. It had sent the ring back into the world, a roving collector, to gather what was owed. The debt wasn't to be paid in gold or jewels. It was to be paid in flesh. In names, in souls, and Eirik, the man who brought the ring back from the depths, was the first installment. The aurora came early that year. Another ill omen. Ribbons of ghostly green light danced across the black sky. To an outsider it would have been beautiful, but the villagers saw it as a harbinger of doom. The old Sami hunter, the wisest man in the village, refused to even look at it. He spat into the snow and muttered a dire warning. "That light is not for people," he growled. He told them the old legends his grandfather had told him when the sky dances. The dead are close when the sky dances. Trolls walk easier among men. When the sky dances, the mountain listens. Eirik knew what he had to do. He couldn't run, he couldn't hide. The curse was inside him, a part of him. If the ring was a key, if it was a contract, then he would use it. He would return it, not to the sea, where it could be found again, not to the village, to continue its slow corruption. He would take it back to the only place it truly belonged, the mouth of the mountain. He gathered what he thought he would need: cold iron nails, said to repel evil spirits, a torch soaked in sticky tar, to light the way and hold the darkness at bay, a small bronze bell, stolen from the now derelict church, its clear tone meant to shatter malevolent silence, and finally, his father's old hunting blade, its steel etched with protective runes. The villagers tried to stop him. They weren't trying to save him. They were terrified of him. They wanted him gone, far away, so the curse would follow. But Eirik turned to face them, and in the flickering torchlight, his eyes were no longer human. They glowed with a faint, stony light. He spoke, and his voice was no longer his own. It was a low, rumbling sound, like gravel sliding down a cliff face. "If I don't go," he rasped, "you'll all become the mountain." It was the night of the midwinter solstice. The sky was not dark, but alive, ablaze with the unearthly green fire of the aurora. It poured across the world, painting the snow in eerie shades. Eirik climbed the northern slope alone. The fresh snow swallowed all sound, creating a profound, unnerving silence. The skeletal trees stood like black bones against the glowing sky. With every step he took, the ring grew heavier, not in his pocket, but in his very soul, a leaden weight pulling him toward his destiny. He reached the mouth of the cave. The air here was warmer, but it wasn't a comforting heat. It felt like the exhalation of a massive lung. Something was breathing inside the mountain, a slow, deep, patient breath that had been waiting for centuries. Taking a deep breath of his own, Eirik stepped out of the world of men and into the darkness. The torch hissed, its flame struggling against the ancient air. And from deep inside the mountain, a sound echoed. It wasn't a loud or sharp sound. It was a low, grinding laugh. A laugh like stone cracking under immense pressure. The mountain was awake, and it was waiting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales from the edge of the map.